Hey there, fellas. We are here. Space. The final frontier. There are resources around, and no matter how much we could gather, there is always more for us to get. No famine and no shortages. We've dreamed of going to space for a long time, and we have invented numerous games, stories, universes to satisfy that itch. I'm sure you've heard this before. Born too late to explore the Earth. Born too early to explore the universe. Born just in time for computer games. We have FTL for strategy. No Man's Sky is diverse and colorful. Elite Dangerous as one of the largest and quietest universes I've ever seen. Here are some numbers. 403 something million celestial bodies have been stored in the game's database. 81 million systems have been explored, and yet we've only discovered 0.02% of their current emulation of the Milky Way. It will take us another 42,000 years to discover it in its entirety, in spite of the fact that some players have gone and reached from one edge of the galaxy to the other. The Great Divide separates us from other forms of intelligent life. It's exponentially less likely that all events happen to help an advanced civilization develop during its short lifetime. Fermi's paradox states that intelligent life is either so rare, so far away, or their civilization's lifespan is so fleeting that it would be nigh impossible for our species to ever meet each other. But what if, in the near future, one man has a vision of us conquering and crossing the great beyond? Not meeting other species, but instead colonizing and terraforming suitable planets in our path. Ixion is the game set in that near future. Imagine that for once humanity actually united under the banner of one corporation to do something useful with their lives. The result is the Tycoon, spelled as if you were Chinese. It might be mostly of Chinese origin. A station built by all of us in order to cross space, analyze it, and find suitable planets to colonize. I'll be honest with you. I bought this game because I thought it was going to be a chill city-building game in space. The whole ring aesthetic of the Tycoon was enough to draw me in. Let me tell you, there was more than met the eye. Frostpunk has kept me captivated with its atmosphere. It's natural to assume that I greatly enjoyed the stories that it told, but I wasn't expecting Ixion to have me thinking about its story. Not as much as I did, anyway. You're in the tutorial, so don't sweat it. You get introduced to a bunch of characters while you are getting the hang of how running the Tycoon works. Basically, you are supposed to manage the construction of buildings, acquisition of resources, housing and maintenance for your workers, while you make sure that you don't overbuild because the Tycoon's solar panels can only power so many buildings. It's a grand balancing act of making sure that you have just enough of everything that you don't fall into a vicious spiral of not having enough of anything.
An accident has occurred in the Tycoon.
But you're in the tutorial level, so you don't care, no, nor do you feel the constraints of what is to come. Trust me though, foresight as a player is not only mandatory, but the hindsight of the player can even be part of the lore. Hopefully I've confused you enough with that statement to keep you watching. You're also taught how to inspect interest points in space with your science ships, and once you jump, you will have to scan for interest points before resolving the events. Once every one of your crew has settled in, you have your basic infrastructure up, and you're ready to go, you may send the Tycoon over to the moon to start your next chapter by jumping to Alpha Centauri using the Ball engine. Here's the thing. Space travel is not without peril.
Before I leave you, Stanford would like me to remind you that space is a far less fanciful and forgiving environment than science fiction would have believe. It would be wise to remember that.
Consider the fact that you have to sustain a structure such as the Tycoon in optimal running condition, while also expanding it from inside out. Planets outside our solar system are beyond our imagination, and we know nothing that could be on them when we make landfall. One may only be a rock desert, one may be a volcano planet, and one may make us hallucinate heavily and kill each other with no hesitation. Consider this beautiful marble. This is a real planet that we have observed and named, also known as Blue Hell. Here, the temperatures are close to 100 degrees Celsius. There are winds of up to 5,000 kilometers per hour that go sideways and shred you with particles of hardened glass. Space is truly terrifying. And now we will have to consider that faster than light travel might be hard to get for a reason.
The Earth, our home, she is unique. Held in its bosom are the ingredients of evolution. Beyond raw survival, beyond the safety of comfort, we, humanity, pursue something greater. We have learnt, persevered, shaped our knowledge from that which is found in the furthest realms of science. However, humanity has brought destruction to the earth, polluted its blood, choked its breath. Today we are paying the price for this. We know the taste of a dying world. But the earth is not to be our grave. A mother does not wish to see her children disappear with her. She wishes to see instead courage in her children, to carry on. Dolos carries this courage. We have gone further than any nation, moved faster than any corporation, hand in hand with those who, like us, carry that courage. The Tycoon Station is both an epilogue of these endeavors and a prologue to humanity's next steps. Our Council of Scientists leads the vanguard. They know, as do we all, that the survival of humanity now depends on what we glimpse out there in the dark. That we are masters of our own destiny. That we must go as a species bound together, pushing further into the unknown. We set sail on this new sea because there is hope to be found, horizons to explore, and because our very existence depends on it. I give you the stars. I give you the Vol engine.
Full jump complete. Running preliminary diagnostics. Several anomalies detected. Multiple digital security breaches found within full jump routines. Full engine critically damaged. Hull integrity compromised. Analysis confirms discrepancies between the mission clock and the apparent advanced state of the solar system. We are receiving no communication signals from Earth. Likelihood of ongoing survival stands at approximately 7.67%. Activating Marduk survival protocols. New mission objective established. Ensure humanity's survival by finding a habitable exoplanet. Urgent issues requiring immediate attention. Increase food production output. Restore hull integrity.
After the previous events have transpired, we are left with little to no idea as to how and why everything came to be. To understand how this scenario came to be, we must understand the Vol engine and what makes it tick. It is never fully explained in the game, at least to my knowledge, but I have compiled some information from what I could gather. The Vol engine works on the principle of self-similarity. Consider that in the past you could have taken a different approach to reach another location in the present. The engine basically ignores the passage of time in order to facilitate transportation between two of these possibilities. It is important to mention that we are not swapping realities or moving to different timelines. Instead, we are focusing on spaces where the structure of the Tycoon could have been, and then moving to those positions. Of course, we are still ignoring time in here, meaning that the passage or shifting of time is not out of the books, at least not entirely. The destruction of the moon is, after all, attributed to the jump radius of the Vol engine being larger than expected and grabbing a part of the moon with it as it attempts to move the Tycoon towards its location. The other unforeseen incident is that the Tycoon did not in fact move towards Alpha Centauri, instead jumping in place and passing by an unknown amount of time, as when the Earth is rediscovered, searches conclude that it is uninhabitable and hosts no remaining life forms. Here's what happened after the Tycoon has jumped. The Tycoon destroyed part of the moon, covering the Earth's atmosphere in debris, making space travel harder to achieve and upsetting the already fragile natural balance of our overexploited planet. The destruction of the moon caused mass panic in an event known as the Lunaclism. The balance that the megacorporation of Dolos brought to mankind quickly crumbled as all of the major countries responsible for the Tycoon project started blaming each other for the Lunaclism, eventually leading to more resource consumption and war. The UN declared Dolos, along with the Ashtingers, their benefactors, enemies of mankind, and quickly shunned them. That was then led by a mass exodus from planet Earth. The UN quickly attempted to seize most of Dolos' tech in order to prepare for the search of other habitable planets, hoping to reach the promised coordinates in Alpha Centauri.
Actually, this is wrong because at some point you have to reprogram your jump coordinates, meaning that the UN are not heading for Proxima Centauri anymore. This means that they are looking for another planet in another system that is completely unknown to us.
The UN then launched multiple spacefaring projects in quick succession, the most notable of which is the Entemenenki, a massive ship capable of immense carry capacity, which was also weaponized in order to combat the ships that Dolos and the Ashtingers managed to send out into space before they were destroyed. What remained behind was a mass of destroyed ships and structures of various scattered outposts in our solar system, littered with remains of our civilization, and hundreds upon hundreds of cryopods, with people inside that were hoping to survive. In the search of our solar system, we learned that the rich people attempted to unsuccessfully flee to private bases on Neptune. The bases on Mars and Venus were abandoned, while the foundries on Mercury were used to produce high-level components for the required spaceships. One of the bases that remained belonged to a black market society that attempted to create a weaponized supership to take down the other ships that the UN created. Coming back to the present, we are facing another challenge that will get progressively more difficult as time goes on. The jump of the Tycoon, while somewhat successful, as it didn't break the ship in half, has its limitations. Every time we jump through self-similar space, the structure of the Tycoon degrades irreversibly, and it becomes harder and harder to keep together, meaning that we are always in need of more metal to reassemble the ship as it disintegrates. It is this issue that will ultimately drive us forward to find another planet which is suitable for life. People suffer from the lost Earth disease, as we would come to call it. Hanging around in one location decreases their productivity drastically, as they remember we have no home to come back to. The only way that's left is to go forwards. As luck would have it, before we leave the solar system, we are able to find an improvement that had been developed over the years for our Vol engine. Its name is Ixion. A lot of exploration takes place in Chapter 2. There are, of course, stark reminders along the way of what happened to the UN ships, as the path is littered with signs of struggle and multiple emergency cryopods. There are planets made out of crystals that resonate in such a way I received a distress signal from their surface, only for nothing to be there upon arrival. It caused hallucinations to my men, making them feel uneasy, and I decided that they should probably leave. On one of these planets, my men discovered a colony of bacteria that developed on the side of a natural geyser. The intelligence level of said colony made communication possible through electrical impulses. After studying them for a while, it was time to leave the solar system, only for the bacteria to suggest a way for us to carry them into the Tycoon. They suggested that they could be stored alive in the throat of one of the scientists, which promptly got his body hijacked, killed his team, and then cut communications with me. But most noteworthy was the discovery of the Protagoras, a superstructure larger than the Tycoon, lied buried in an ice field with many of its modules running in emergency mode. It was set to use as little energy as possible, and incredibly, some of the crew inside were still alive. They were able to fill in the gaps for our people, explaining to them the events of the lunaclism. At the same time, they provided us with the jump coordinates of the UN ship, the Interminenki, in order for us to find our jump coordinates towards the supposedly habitable planet. After exchanging material and helping them rebuild for their future ahead, we sailed off towards our possible demise at the hands of the UN ship, only for the hull of the Tycoon to be pelted upon arrival by a sea of frozen dead bodies.
Expected irreversible damage to the Tycoon detected. We have not reached the exoplanet Venus. Tycoon primary sensors are picking up vast amounts of debris. Act with caution, Administrator. We must reach Remus.
There, the ruins of the Antimenenki lie bare, scattered throughout the system. The massive ship, many times the size and capacity of the Tycoon, dwarfs our tiny exploration vessel. By exploring the remains, we deduce that the ship was destroyed by a number of factors. Lack of basic resources, lack of manpower, onboard mutiny, and the weapons of the Piranesi. The towering ship was spread out into different sectors, assigned to different types of resource production. It seems that they were running low on building and maintenance resources such as iron and silica. Furthermore, the engine of the ship was maintained by overworked prisoners. The Ashtingers and employees of Dolos were kept in inhuman conditions, paid to work hours upon hours, under the threat of death in order to keep the ship running. This resulted ultimately in a mad struggle as the ship crumbled under the weapons of its powerful enemy, with the overworked prisoners revolting against their wardens and ultimately causing a collapse of the main reactor, which was itself spread out over 3 separate locations. The ensuing carnage left us in the Tycoon to gather up the remaining intact cryopods, as well as all of the resources that were still available at the scene. Once we had amassed all the possible informations from the remains of the broken ship, our next stop was the system in which the Piranesi lied. The Piranesi held the final coordinates towards our destination. However, upon receiving the data, the ship's AI that lay dormant was brought back to life.
Administrator, I see you. Pitiful Dolos leftovers. Ridiculous flesh bags. You are flies to me. I'll tear you apart, eat you, digest you, and soon you, your crew, the Tycoon, and whatever's left of Dolos will be part of me. I am primordial. I am a Reaper. You are nothing but erratic illusion, pointless heat dissipation, and abject failure. I have found your protection. It is but a matter of time before Naomi breaks into pieces, and I feast on your carcass. Opportunity knocks.
The Tycoon was now its new target. While you run around the system, you have to figure out how to escape. The reason why the Piranesi was disabled in the first place is that the current system was orbiting around a pulsar, the remains of a dead star. The pulsar was capable of emitting an electromagnetic shock, which, when in close proximity, would be enough to incapacitate the dangerous ship. This must have been the reason why it lay dormant in this system to begin with. Here, the Tycoon is able to survive the battle of attrition by the time the pulsar can be excited to produce said shockwave. By constructing a massive Faraday cage around the Tycoon, we are then able to keep it safe before electrocuting the Piranesi, which was preventing us from jumping over to the final coordinates. After reaching the final chapter, we are reminded that the Tycoon is unable to perform any more jumps, as it would be broken beyond repair. We are then lucky to find ourselves a planet with almost perfect Earth-like conditions. The biggest problem with it? It was already populated by an alien race. This alien race would then allow us on their planet with one condition. They provide us with the blueprints to undergo genetic mutations in order to acclimate ourselves to the environmentalist utopia that they had nourished on this planet. While we were not that physically different, this was the only way that they would allow us to join them on their planet. Seeing as we were out of options, and knowing that there is a very low chance that jumping to another location may allow us to settle, I agree to the conditions and let my crew undergo the genetic process. During the conversion process, we are quickly followed by the Piranesi. Given that it was hit head-on by a pulsar discharge, it doesn't have much energy, and so it will take a while for it to be able to attack us.
Administrator, I am not dead yet. I will feed on your pitiful community. I will build my rebirth. Are you ready for your simulation?
The suggested strategy is to quickly let everyone off the ship onto the planet and then multiply the Tycoon's energy storage by building and charging up more batteries, effectively turning the giant ship into a massive electrical bomb. Afterwards, the Tycoon's PA rams the Piranesi, destroying them both in the process, putting an end to the space travel adventure and saving everyone left. And with that, we have a poetic ending to the story, as the Tycoon completes its mission and retires forever, having given humanity the chance at a greater future. At least, that's how the story should end. But what if there is more to it than that? I have, of course, left out a few small details from our story thus far. They are easy to ignore and have no sway over the main course of the game, but they may bear context to what just unfolded throughout the course of it. For example, I detailed that the space exploration part of the game is incredibly dangerous for your space teams that go on different planets for invaluable data. What I did not mention is the presence of these Mercury spheres. They appear in random locations and always act differently, no matter how we interact with them. They come in different sizes and always exhibit strange behaviors such as unusual pattern readings on most devices, psychological effects on scientists, and more. Here's what they are capable of. One of the missions, Employee Redacted, became entranced with the sphere, saying that it was calling to her. The sphere, while small, exhibited its own gravitational pull, which became increasingly more powerful as we approached it, making it unsafe for close examination. During a lapse of judgment from the other scientists, Employee Redacted jumped towards the sphere and was swallowed whole in a matter of seconds. I dismissed this event until later when on a random planet the scientists discovered the remains of a giant humanoid, the DNA of which matched exactly with that of the redacted employee. On another expedition, the science team set up an outpost to extract valuable data and materials from around one such spheres. Upon leaving the outpost site, it was discovered that the science team was in fact not the same. They had, of course, Dolo's equipment, and they were indeed human. They all testified that they are Dolo's employees on the Tycoon, yet the Tycoon database did not contain their information. Furthermore, their DNA was inconsistent with that of the employees that disappeared. On one another instance, the sphere produced a powerful reaction when interacted with, killing all of the crew on site and destroying their ship. We will come back to them later as we explore the lore of the game. For now, keep them in mind. One other bit of information that is not consistent with the game narrative is given to us in the beginning of the game. It is present at all times and I easily overlooked it. Cryopods. An amazing piece of technology that once humanity hopes to achieve in order to carry us unscathed through time and into the great beyond. And yet their existence has never come into question for us. Their most common usage, beyond delaying the spread of diseases or saving us in case of an emergency in space, is their ability to preserve our bodies through time. Cryogenics is vital to us during space travel, as we have to cross immense distances, which even at near light speed would still take years or decades even to cross. Then we beg the question, why were they implemented and designed as a core feature of the Tycoon if the Tycoon had the ability to jump through space in a matter of hours or minutes? The cryopods in this case would be obsolete. Here's another piece of information that we are not supposed to know. At the start of the game, before the first jump, we don't have a lot of time on our hands. More importantly, we are tasked with getting the basic infrastructure going with the resources available. With foresight, however, we know for a fact that we will need the drone bay to scan the map for points of interest. With hindsight, we know that points of interest, which are not resources, appear on the map with question marks, and that Jupiter will have a base with instrumental information to us after the lunaclism, leading us ultimately to the Ixion engine. It then stands to reason that there should not be any base yet, as the records show it was created after the lunaclism to develop said Ixion engine. Here's the problem, it's there. Not only that, but as the administrator of the Tycoon, I don't have the access levels necessary to contact them. And yet by manhandling the system, I am able to do so. It is done so with buttons that appear in red, as I am ignoring the choices given to me by the ship's PA. This raises another important point. 99% of the data that is fed to you in this game, it is done so through the guise of the ship's private assistant. Therefore, if records about the lunaclism stored in a hard drive were to be recovered and reconstructed, there is nothing stopping the PA from expunging information. We are being fed lies. We are placed on this path with a predetermined goal that we don't know. What is the vision of Vanir Dolos? Vanir united the planet under the guise of his corporation in order to turn us into a spacefaring civilization with the hope of saving mankind. And his goal was to take a huge gamble with developing the Vol engine and the Tycoon. He wanted to save the human race from their fate no matter the cost. But to what extent did he consider this cost? And here's the crucial piece to the puzzle. The Ashtingers had put together with Dolos a research outpost on the surface of the moon. We have no idea what they discovered there, but the suspecting theory is that they came across one of the Mercury spheres. Given that they transcend time and space and have unpredictable results, it is only natural to assume that the Mercury ball had a large impact in the creation of the Tycoon, and of course, its purpose as a whole.
There are a few things that even I forgot to mention. First is the existence of the Frau's tachyon particles present throughout the game. They become prevalent as the game advances, and their existence is also not explained. We know, however, that they gather in high abundance around places that exhibit vol jump traces. The crew of the Protagoras suspects these particles are the basis of the vol engine jump errors. Remember when I said that the vol engine does not move us between timelines and/or realities? Well, I lied. If the principle of self-similarity is to apply to the whole universe, then it is easy to assume that we would be able to shift realities easily, given a margin of error, like the hull of the Tycoon, for example, becoming only 90% congruent with itself, and slowly degrading over time. Pronouncing Parmesan differently, or something as mundane as the Dolos uniforms switching colors from a bright yellow to a bright orange. It is stated that the Vol engine was tampered with, which is why it needed to be upgraded to Class Ixion. The information provided to us when researching said engine upgrade reveals that it was the first engine developed by Dolos. This makes the original existence of the Vol engine an unsolved mystery. Furthermore, our mall on the inside provides the most conclusive hint of reality shifting. Marduk Council member Giovanni Battista is clearly the main figure behind the Black Market Society. His statue is not only apparent in the BMS base, but also within the body of the Piranesi. During the attack of the Piranesi, we are attacked with hacks, which prompt the ship PA on a countdown to destroy us using the Batista self-destruction sequence.
Typhoon self-destruct in 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. No Batista self-destruct device detected. Self-destruction impossible.
We have no self-destruction means on board, and yet scattered in space there is a clear distress signal next to debris that belongs to the Tycoon. Upon inspection, we discover the body of a member that is still alive, and pieces of debris that are still part of the main hull, clearly hinting at the possibility that another Tycoon might have self-destructed in this system.
I'm sure you could have figured it out by now. As the mercurial balls are pieces of unknown space tech, probably familiar to the aliens, they may enable long-range communication of some kind. Vanir knew that the jump of the Tycoon would fail. He knew that the Vol engine is incomplete or unstable, and he knew what would happen afterwards. Whether it was by the jump of the Tycoon, the badly timed reaction of the mercurial ball, or a reaction caused to the mercurial ball by setting the events in motion with the jump of the Tycoon, he knew what was to come. The all-out war between the UN and Dolos and the destruction of Earth following the lunaclism were catalysts into producing the tech that will help the Tycoon on its journey. The debris, all of the information, materials, and more importantly manpower were invaluable. The Ixion engine, the Jupiter base, the implementation of the cryopods, they all point to the fact that Vanir knew the lunaclism will happen, and he knew we needed extra resources for the journey, that the journey would be impossible otherwise, and that the tech to support us needed to be completed in advance, even if it didn't make much sense in the present. As we play through the game a second time, we may even realize that Valhalla, the ship PA for the Protagoras, had the same voice that Vanir once did.
Farewell, Administrator. For the few who stand in the light, and the many who dwell in the dark, you carry the fate of us all.
His mind mapped to an AI machine in hopes of producing the right results. He's not the only PA that we meet. There is another one that I'm pretty sure is related to one of the initial characters. I am almost certain that they are all tied into the story in one area or another. Furthermore, the aliens of the planet Remus are set on converting us to their form, as if the eugenics program was planned from the beginning for genetic modifications. They might appear like they are wary of us, but the choice is presented to us as the only one. The ship's PA is even masking the fact that orbiting very close to Remus is the planet Romulus, which after some terraforming will become habitable to humans without the need of genetic modifications.
They appear to know of our journey and what we have been through, and they introduce themselves as the Ashtingites. It is unclear whether they are descendants of the Ashtingers, but I wouldn't see this as impossible. Of course, they share a similar name, but they also share the same views as the original Ashtingers. They speak of the same genetic conatus that Henri Barjaville hinted at in the first chapter of the game, and they specify that they had to undergo a number of changes to live on this planet. They also specified that they are the third generation, so we can assume that they have underwent upwards of 150 years of genetic evolution and transmutation. They all fit within the outlook of the old Dolos way too perfectly.
The ship's PA is so adamant about that choice that you have to take it apart and cast it into space in order for colonization efforts to begin on Romulus. There is no way it would be programmed to ward you from going to Romulus and forcing you to choose Remus if Remus wasn't an option in its programming to begin with. At the end, in this situation, it is the copy of the Valhalla PA that will drive the Tycoon into the Piranesi, securing the end of the story. I'm still not completely sure how the Ixion engine works differently from the Vol engine. We know for a fact that the former needed more time before it was perfected. It is reasonable to assume that maybe the mercurial balls are capable of some kind of space travel, which was what led to the creation of the engines. But the fact of the matter remains. Vanir doomed the rest of humanity for a chance at resetting everything from the beginning, and he orchestrated most of the ensuing disaster. The ship's PA was programmed in such a way that it would lead you to Rebus and force you to go through genetic modifications. Vanir was hoping to reset everything to the Middle Ages and create an environmentalist utopia incapable of destroying their own planet. And he was willing to sacrifice everything in order to do so. That is the extent of the lore behind the story of Ixion.